Hello and welcome back to Parenting Unpacked Season 2. Hi, Siobhan.
Hello, we're back.
We
Back and
are.
ready.
We are back and ready. We didn't actually intend to wrap Season 1 when we did, and I did get in trouble by Siobhan for not telling her we were wrapping. But here we are. We're back. Look, Siobhan, I'm still very sorry about that, but I burnt out because if you guys didn't know, I conned Siobhan into this podcast
It's true.
under the law of I would do all of the work. And Siobhan would just show up and have chats with me, and like that's what I wanted.
Yeah, which is an unfair distribution of labor, but I'm cool with that because we went in with our eyes open. But as a result, Kristen, who has a full-time job, is a content creator with over 500,000 followers and bites off more than she can chew at the best of time. I mean, this is a personality trait of yours.
Look, it's a toxic trait, but it's who I am, and that's okay. But I was
A bit overwhelmed.
being realistic with myself. Yeah, I was just like, I give up. So we wrapped Season 1 without telling anyone, especially my co-host Siobhan. And then
it's all good.
And then she found out that we wrapped because I put a message up on the Parenting Unpacked podcast page. Look, did I do some things wrong? Absolutely. Am I willing to take the blame and to know that it was wrong? Absolutely. Also, I do this often. We're all about being honest and transparent here. There's no ego, there's no bravado. There's just I got a little bit overwhelmed and now we're here. We're back. We've onboarded a wonderful volunteer producer because we make no money on this podcast. So our wonderful Ellen is sitting backstage right now, listening to us yammer on, probably dreading the fact that she agreed to produce this podcast by editing it. So we're going to try and do our best to not make Ellen do any editing more than she already has to.
Which works in our typical style is to just talk nonsense and keep it all in. So that works very well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so basically we had a quick break because life is hard and gets too much, and we had lots of international travel and trips and planning and things. Yeah. As is the way that we do things, we figure it out as we go along.
Yes, and I'm actually really surprised that we ended up coming back. I don't know why.
I genuinely thought it was done, and not in a bad way. Like I was like, cool, we gave it a solid shot.
We gave it like 25 episodes. Like the fact that we got to 25 was very impressive. We ran from September to May. Like that is, we ran over Christmas.
I know. We're a bit silly, but
yes,
we enjoy it.
we are.
Other people seem to enjoy it.
Yes, this is true. And content creation is just kind of in our blood at this point. Like you content create, I content create. You sensory play create. Like that's a fun time.
But I wonder, do you feel that the content creation side of things, I feel like it's so similar to academia. It's just
literally
better and faster, and there's no paywall. I mean, no. I mean, there is a paywall for some people, but what we do, this is no paywall. Like we just really, because anyway, in terms of academia, you're constantly thinking about how am I going to present the story. The research is a story, and it's by nature of having humans involved. There's a lens or a bias, and so you're trying to be like, what story am I trying to tell? Who am I trying to tell it to? How do I best convey it? Which is the same as content creation.
It quite literally is. I have used a lot of the skills that I learnt during my PhD and through stimuli creation and things like that in my content creation. I did not learn how to do satire and humor in my academic research. I did learn how to do it when I was teaching, though.
Yes.
So yeah, a career in academia has really set me up for a career in content creation. So there you have it, folks. If you'd like to become a successful content creator, all you need to do is go into a PhD in psychology. Super simple.
Easy.
Absolutely not. There's a much easier way to do it. And there's a lot more people that are far more successful than we that don't have the cumulative 2 decades of higher education.
So who's the smartest one there, right?
No. So yeah, don't listen to us. Go listen to somebody else. Anyway, this is already unhinged, but that's okay. It is our vibe. Like I think that's every parent's vibe, though. If you're not unhinged, like, you're lying. You're presenting the highlight reel. We know there's an unhinged person under there.
Some people have chill kids and they're chill people. Those people aren't us. But
no, they're unicorns. You know how we talk about the babies that sleep through the night from like 3 months old?
Yeah.
They're the same kind of unicorns as the people that just happen to be chill, that don't seem to have this underlying note of anxiety, just like constantly oscillating beneath their skin. No, am I wrong?
No, I know. I was having this conversation with my husband the other day, and I was saying, I'm like, aren't you worried about insert 12 things here? And he said, no, because it'll happen or it won't. I was like, oh, but
look,
you can spend
beautiful.
that. You can spend that in between time, just like tying yourself in knots, and that gives you something to do.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, we need things to do, guys. We're not busy enough. So, of course, we need to occupy our brain with fears and anxieties. Of course. I mean, it's really nice that you have a husband that likes to bring you back down to earth. My husband, on the other hand, has other things I don't even think about being a problem that he thinks about as being a problem. So we just wind each other up.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my poor kid. She's growing up in a very tightly wound household, but that's okay because we're working on it.
Oh, and she'll find her own things to get wound up about. That's the beauty of being a person.
She's already tightly wound. She's the reason that we're tighter wound. Yeah,
more
look.
tightly. Yes.
So here's the thing. Recently, she's been asking for a baby brother and sister.
Timo too.
I can't.
The good thing is she doesn't get to decide.
No.
So that helps.
Yeah, but it's really cute when she asks, and then we have to sit down with her and go, okay, here's all the things that would happen if there was a baby sibling.
She's not
like it's very unlikely.
She's not but
every time we explain it to her, or the clincher, we explain to her that the new baby will get my milk, even though she has now fully weaned. That is not okay. She just starts pretending to be a baby, and I'm like, okay, I'm glad I've talked you off that cliff because it's still not happening for years, if at all.
Yes. No, Timo's been asking for a baby. Recent is baby sister. He's very adamant that he needs a sister.
Okay.
Again, he doesn't get to decide, nor do I.
No.
So no, I think it's just a.
Wait, did you say you don't get to decide?
I don't get to decide if it's a boy or a girl.
Oh, I thought you meant you
and technically I don't get to decide. Well, I also don't. That's the beauty of not beauty, I guess, but I don't get to decide whether it happens.
I mean, to some degree, you get to make a decision about whether you would like to have another child and whether you remove precautions.
That is true. But as to whether or not it actually happens, that's...
Yeah, sure. Like, it depends what level of, like, literalness we're talking about here. But,
Sure. Yes,
you have more...
Here we are talking... Yes, no. So we've decided that we do want another child.
Oh, good God.
I have decided. Alexandra's still on the fence and regularly goes...
We've had this conversation before.
Yes.
It's the same update as like a year ago.
Pretty much. And that's kind of how the last year has been. No. So, yeah, like if it happens, it happens and it'll be terrible in its own special way.
Oh, it's going to be fucked.
Yeah, that's kind of the nature of child rearing, it appears.
It really is.
Except do you know what would be better? Although I'm sure, so this ties back into our thing. I kind of fantasize of like, well, if I just had $1 bajillion and nannies and cleaners, but then I'd find my own things to get stressed about.
Also, like,
find a way.
Would you hand your newborn child over to a nanny? Because I thought I could with my first one, and I couldn't let her go for like 9 months.
Yeah, but also like you had perinatal anxiety, like you were pregnant and severely anxious. So hopefully,
yes,
like that. I mean, anyway,
yes,
but no, I think I could. Well, it depends, right? In terms of nannies, like it wouldn't be a full time nanny. Like it's not like I'd just be like, here, see you.
I mean, that'd be nice. Like,
no,
give it back to me when they're two.
Nice. No, because then you've just like ruined your body, not ruined, changed your body for none of the like those baby smiles, even though everything else is terrible.
Look, I'm starting to see the logic in the Kardashians and the surrogacy and the way they've done it. Like, yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure, doesn't Kim have endometriosis or something?
Yeah, like she had a reason for it.
Sure,
absolutely.
Sorry, as in like not just.
But I can definitely, as someone who absolutely wouldn't do it, I can see why people would do it.
Oh yeah, Of course.
I'm still very undecided. Like, we had put a line in the sand, which is like at 5 years we're considering it and not until then. And we haven't changed our mind on that. Me, nor my husband, none of us. We're not making a decision until she is 5, and that's more because of her. She needs a lot of support. She needs a lot of our attention and our focus, and we don't know what kind of kid she's going to be, especially if she inherits some of my genetics. So we'll wait until she's 5, and if things are smoother sailing, perhaps it'll be on the cards, perhaps it won't, because if like she's chill but I'm not, yeah. Anyways, that's my thought pattern.
It's so funny. Like, before I had kids, I very much assumed that people had a say in things more. I was like, oh, if you just decide that you want to have children X years apart, and then you do that. And if you had children 5 years apart or 2 years apart, it's because that's what you decided, which is so naive.
So very naive, because for a lot of people, like, either their bodies don't decide, or their children need more time, or it could be anything, or it could be that they have to get them closer together because their biological clock seems to be telling them to. Like, there is so many things that can go chaotic in the whole multiple children scenario.
And I'm sure there's plenty of people who do decide that it'll happen this way, and it does, and obviously vice
beautiful
versa.
for them.
For sure. But it's such a wild thing how we as humans pretend that we have control over things.
That's why religion exists, because humans hate randomness. So we like to attribute it to some kind of reason. And when we can't attribute it to a reason, we attribute it to some kind of spiritual belief. I bring that in a lot. I feel like this is not the first time I've talked about the fact that religion exists because of randomness.
You've done lots of lectures on religion, right?
Yeah, I've done some. I'm pretty sure the irony. I'm pretty sure my lectures are still being used at UQ, because I've had
ask you this.
Yeah,
I was saying
I've had students slide into my DMs saying, "You're my lecturer at UQ," and I'm like, "I'm not."
I'm
but
not.
nice to
Do you
hear.
think like they're being used as guest lectures, perhaps?
They are, but like, there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how many they're actually using, like, because I can't tell.
I mean, I guess technically it's all the university's IP, but still, you would have thought.
I know.
I would,
but we should get royalties.
Oh, don't be silly. It's the University of Queensland.
I know, but like, if this is a new way of like teaching. And it's like, I feel like royalties might actually need to be a thing, because people are going to create content for a university, and then like they're not going to have their contract renewed, and then all of a sudden the university doesn't need that lecturer for like 5 years before they need to update the content, and it all seems a bit dodgy. So like, I feel like there's going to be a union thing. Yeah, because
like, it's supremely dodgy. But by the time the union like goes through all the legalese to get it sorted, like, yes, sorry, I'm being really cynical.
You
universities,
are. That's okay.
But it's the university. Like, anyway, I actually have a question.
I mean, that's why you left academia.
It's true. I'm going to ask you a question that you're probably not going to answer. Do you? So, I'm not jaded against our university that we studied at particularly. I just think it's a big sandstone university, which is the Australian equivalent of an Ivy League university, that just milks their students and their staff for everything they can get, because that's how that works. And they do lots of good work, but they're not. They're a corporation in the truest sense of, and all that negativity that can go along with it is there and present. Do you feel that your current university is different? Now, feel free to not answer that.
I will not answer that on air.
Perfect.
Because
that's fair.
Although I do not link my institution to my content creation accounts, it is very easy to find out where I work, and I will remain impartial, and I can talk about different institutions offline. I am so sorry to everyone that's listening to this, but that is a line in the sand I have to draw, I think, for legal reasons.
Reasonable. Yeah, probably. No, that's completely reasonable. I'm just asking because I'm curious, but I can obviously talk to you. So for those of you who don't know, a lot of the time these podcasts are just me and Kristen catching up.
they are.
and chatting. So you do get behind the scenes, but thankfully Kristen is clever enough to not answer questions that can get her in trouble or fired.
Oh, most of the time. We'll see. I've been practicing a lot at this. I think about it a lot.
I was
At
going to
the
say,
moment,
have you gotten in trouble before?
No. I've actually not gotten in trouble at either institution because I've worked at both institutions since being a viral content creator. Someone did try to get me fired early on in my content creation journey. But like my boss at the time was just like, we don't care what they do in their personal time. Please take it up with that person, not us. And that was really nice. So yeah, I'm really enjoying where I am. I am having a lot of fun. I'm getting a lot of work done, which is amazing. It's nice to have a bit of a change of scenery and be close to home. Because my old institution was over an hour from home. This one's about 15 minutes. So it's a completely different lifestyle. So that's nice. But it's an institution that doesn't have a early cognitive development lab. So I'm really starting from scratch there. Yeah, I know. It's been interesting.
Are you building a lab or are you a
I
bit
am
of a
slowly.
lab ranger?
No, I am trying to convince lots of people to join me and to like build a database. And I'm like luring them in with the promise of the fact that I know how to build databases. I know how to run successful cognitive development labs. I know how to make relationships with public entities like museums to try and get funding to get, research stuff that ways. I'm doing lots of things, which is, not completely surprising to anyone that knows me. I like to do all of the things all of the time.
I just love that like 10 years ago, we talked about, you're like, I'm going to go to this university and I'm going to start a child development lab and I'm going to do this and this. And I was like, that sounds awesome.
That wasn't 10 years ago. It was 2018.
I picked a number. It
was at the International Society for Behavioral Development. I think
that sounds right.
Yeah.
I don't do numbers. That's why you helped me with my stats.
And so but the thing is, I told Siobhan that we were going to go to this university and create our own baby lab. And instead Siobhan left academia and now I have to do it alone. I
did. Sorry.
So thanks, Siobhan. But that's okay because I will build that lab with other people who are very fun.
And I will support you.
I'm happy where I am right now.
But not with labor or intellectual stuff. I mean, I'm happy to chat about it. I'm loving what I'm doing at the moment. I'm really loving it.
You know what we can do is that during your play groups, when you eventually end up with like a space where you have like play groups like every day, I don't know, you're going to have like some fancy institution with play groups. I'm going to be like, can I conduct research at your play groups? And you'll be like, yeah, sweet. You can have a research room. And it's going to be amazing.
That could be so cool.
Imagine the collab.
That would be so cool. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, I run at the moment. I do sensory play experiences at daycare centers. So lots of daycare centers have people that come in and do yoga for the kids or music classes, and I do sensory play for the little ones, 0 to 2, largely because preverbal children do not experience the world in the way that we do. We process things through language and thought, because language informs thought. They can't do it that way. So they experience things through their physical kind of physical experience, their physical environment. So sensory stuff's really great. And so many daycares don't necessarily know this. But thankfully the ones who I work with do know this and appreciate it. And so I go in and I work with the little ones and we play and we do really like sensory rich stuff. And the thing that like, it's funny, and I wonder if you feel the same. So often I'm like, oh, I'm not doing anything important. And then you get in and you're like, oh no, all of this is backed by decades of experience and research and evidence. And I know what I'm doing. And there's so much of what I know and what I do that I assume is common knowledge. And then I'm reminded that, oh no, not everyone knows this stuff. And so it's a real honor to be able to impart some of it to the educators and the teachers in the rooms.
This happens to me literally every day on both TikTok and whenever I meet with my students. Like, I'm just like, oh, wow, I know things. I know things I can teach you. Like, when did I get good enough to be able to explain what a general linear mixed model does with random intercepts and random slopes? Like, what? Anyways.
See, I told you she was the stats with.
Anyways. Yeah, speaking of sensory stuff, did you see my stories on Instagram last night?
did. I was so I've seen that who was it? The
Little Potion Co.
something.
Sorry, we need to put some
Yeah, I've
context
seen
into
that.
this. So last night I put up a
Yes.
series of stories. So how do we make this story short? Basically, my daughter's been having trouble going back to kindy since our very long overseas trip, which we haven't talked to you about yet, but I promise we will. But basically, she's having a really hard time like separating from me. So what we've been doing is kind of like planning our afternoon's activities in the morning so that she has something really exciting to look forward to. And it also gives me a structure for like things that like I know I can then connect with my child at the end of the day, even when I'm exhausted and tired. Like it gives you that little bit of motivation. And it's usually potions is her request every morning, basically. And when she says potions, she means these little kits that Little Potion Co. sent us. They gifted them to us, which was very, very sweet. And they are literally the most whimsical, beautiful things I have ever seen. You make like, you've got this little like, I don't know, there's these powders and then you have these liquids and you pour the liquids into the powders and they fizzle up and then they become this like beautiful incandescent glittering like broth, and they've got all these different like potions for different things, and like they've got little affirmation cards. It's just so cute and just I love them. That's all I have to say.
So cool.
Yeah,
no, I've seen them in some of my ads. The other one that I know that you say that when it runs out, you're in trouble. And I wanted to tell you about, I haven't got it yet because Timo's not actually, it's so funny. He's not actually into sensory play.
What? We have very different children.
I know. It's so amusing. This is like literally what I do for a living, but it's not really his vibe. Yeah. He prefers trucks and Lego.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair. The sand pit is kind of his main sensory play.
Yeah. Fair.
And that's kind of, and then nature play, but yeah, I don't have to, but he does like in terms of like setups and like, it's just, he's not that into it. I can get out a sensory box that will occupy, like not most, but some toddlers for like 30, 40 minutes.
Oh, that's a long time.
And he'll be like, well, I know because I create very wonderful sensory
boxes. You are
boxes,
very brilliant, aren't you?
Thank you. I didn't set that compliment up for myself. But no, he'll be like 5 minutes, have a look at everything, be like, oh yeah, that's cool. Next.
Yeah.
And I have like when I go to my centers, like I've got kids in some of the rooms that it's just not their vibe and they kind of have a look and then come back, which is fine. But he's one of those ones. He'd be the kind of kid who'd be like, oh yeah, this is okay. Now I'm going to go play in the sandpit, which is fine. But it's ironic for sure. What was I going to say? But I looked these up and I haven't bought them only because it's not really Timo's vibe. But I wanted to share them with you. They are called, so Curious Me is the company. They're actually down your way.
I know they are. They've been in contact with me. We've been trying to set up a time when I can go and like see their actual sessions. And I keep being like, oh, I'm not available. Yeah, I know they are. Anyways,
yeah, I've met them a couple of times at various like workshops and panels, and we run a what's it called, a conference panel together, and cool. In particular is the main one I got to speak with because it's two sisters that run this thing, and they're the coolest. But they've put out together a Halloween pack which is called the Hocus Pocus Explorer Pack.
Yeah,
and they've got like wands and like potions and fizzle dust. Anyway, so yeah, it could totally be your vibe.
I mean, my daughter's favorite time of year that she talks about all year, the one thing she always wants to watch on TV, anything like that, is Halloween. It's literally her obsession. Like, I'm like, what about your birthday? And she's like, when's Halloween? And I was like, it's after your birthday. And she's like, can it be Halloween? And it's like, oh. Like, okay, why Halloween? Like, why? Why am I my scary loving child?
See, well, I saw that because it was Book Week in Australia recently, which is where children basically spend a week dressing up as book characters and celebrating reading and all those kinds of things.
They do.
Timo didn't want to dress up.
That's fine.
Which is totally fine. But I didn't, again, I know that that's not really his kind of thing. Yeah. But I had like costumes in case he was interested. Yeah. All of the other kids, and I was like, so I had them in his bag and he was just not his thing. But I saw that Sienna really got into it.
She did.
Lots of costumes, which was awesome.
She had Spider-Man on day 1 and she was a fairy on day 5. And that's just basically her vibe every week. Like the other day, she went to kindy wearing a Wonder Woman dress with a Digger shirt underneath. This morning, he went with a cement truck shirt and pink runners. So she has her own vibe, and some mornings she looks like the most beautiful, like fairy tale loving little girl, Other days it looks like I haven't actually fed her or brushed her hair. And she's rough and tumble, like looks like she's been climbing in the mud. So I do wonder what the caregivers at the daycare think of her and me more accurately. But we let her be her. Her new thing, however,
for sure.
is braids. She wants now.
Nice.
No, but this is terrifying. She's getting so good at reasoning and like understanding cause and effect and things like that, as she should be. She's almost 3. But I've learned how to do braids, and she's very graciously let me learn, because I'll ask her every morning, what kind of hairstyle do you want today? Like, what do you want me to do with your hair? We need to pull it up. It needs to get out of your face. So like we have to do it. She's got like one of those hairlines where the hair goes forwards, like from the back of her head, it pushes forwards, which means she's just always got hair in her eyes. So she started saying braids, and I'm like, wow, you really like braids. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, why do you like braids? And she's like, because I get to watch YouTube. And I was like, oh. Yeah. So now sometimes it'll just be really inappropriate times of the day. Like it'll be almost bedtime. And she's like, can I have braids? I'll be like, what you're really asking is, can I watch YouTube? Yeah.
Absolutely. Timo's similar. So we co-sleep in that I start the night in my bed, and then sometime between 12 and 3 a.m. he wakes up and calls for me, and I go in. But so he wakes up in the morning, and typically it's earlier than I would like, because that's how that works. And I usually cajole him back into bed. But he's potty training himself now. And so he started saying, Mummy, I need to use the toilet. I was like, damn it. You know I'm going to get up. That's what you... And then we hop up, we get up, we go to the toilet, and he goes, oh, there's no wee coming. I was like, rat bag.
I love it. I love how smart they are.
Oh. I know. And I can't not ignore it, because the time that I ignore it and decide that he's just tricking me is the time that we all get covered in urine. Anyway.
That's I can ignore the braid thing for that very reason. I'd be like, no, we're not having braids. It is 8 p.m. at night. We're going to bed. But yeah, it's definitely like a thing they're doing. The thing that's like, I don't know what happened, but like basically when she wakes up now, she goes, Mummy, can we play Pokemon? And like I've got a Nintendo Switch, and I like showed her Pokemon one day. And I love Pokemon. Like, if you're a 90s kid, like, yeah, you get it. Like, we love Pokemon. But she literally will sit there and play it with me for like a half hour. And just like by play it with me, I mean, she tells me what Pokemon she wants me to ride, which Pokemons to catch, which moves to do. And I'm just like, is this screen time? Is it bad? There's lots of conversation. It's very interactive. Like, where does this sit on the scale of bad to good screen time? Because I'm very unsure.
There's no such thing as good or bad. It's all like morally in moderation, all in health.
I know.
It is.
I know, but I still sit there in my head and I'm like, what? Where? How? I think my decision is that it's the better use of screen time, because it keeps me engaged as well. It's interactive. There's lots of talking. There's lots of touching. She usually sits on my lap.
There's relationship
and I
building.
like things that, I like things that help me get involved, because I have a hard time. Like, like if I just need a rest, like cool, I just need a rest. But like if I want to do an activity with her, I have a hard time playing. Like it's just not something I can do. I can't do imaginative play. And we now know that like my brain doesn't really do well with imaginative play. So that's cool. But yeah, so one of the things I can do though to connect with my child in a really positive way is play Pokemon with her, and I'm okay with that. So yeah.
Of course you are. That sounds awesome.
It's so fun.
Well, no, of course it is. Like you're a nerd, you're a gamer nerd, you're an IT like computer nerd. So why not share something you love with your child?
Basically. Absolutely. I mean, I'm just stoked that she loves it too.
Totally. Actually, maybe Alex has been keen to get a Switch for ages. Maybe I could mention this to him.
I encourage it.
Because he can't wait until Timo can play Minecraft. He's really looking forward to.
Oh, cute! That's a good game, isn't it? Like, it's a good game for like their abstract reasoning and all sorts of like problem solving and things like that.
Exactly, and there's like a whole bunch of like. Obviously, there's the Minecraft that kids tend to do, which is just building stuff. It's kind of like computer-based Lego. but you can go really, I mean, as with anything on the internet, you can go real hardcore, like full on engineering projects that require heavy neural nets and like means and reasoning and like you can buy circuitry. You have to create circuitry to make it work.
I love that. So yeah, not all screen time is evil, friends. In fact, some of it is very good, and you probably need a little bit of it. Like this is something that is becoming a bit of a conversation now. How much screen time do children need to be able to be prepared for a world that is digital? Like,
yeah, that's such a good point because it's tricky, right? Yeah. Because I know of there's friends and family members of mine who are just they don't watch TV as a family. Mm-hmm. They don't really use computers except for like work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense in their lifestyle. So their kids aren't really engaged in that way, which is cool. However, me and my husband, like we are computer people. We, as my other sister says, we internet. Like we're heavily engaged in that way of living.
Yes, we are.
Being. So like it doesn't, again, similarly, it doesn't make sense for me to not introduce those aspects of our lives to my child.
Yeah, so definitely.
It's all like there's no right or wrong. And like similar, like there's like what is it? Like a kid who is a farmer living off the grid, who grows up to be a farmer living off the grid, they probably don't need to know how to code. No. Like it takes all types. Like there are different things for different people. Whereas a kid who wants to be a gamer or wants to be a UX designer, it could be useful to have that experience.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that like in the first 5 years, nothing is integral to introduce. Just hang with your kid, chat to them, and everything will be okay. You don't need to feel bad about anything else. Just let them explore the world because that first 5 years is, exploring the world's probably enough for their brain. But like after that, I think that's when introducing things like digital literacy might become important. I haven't actually done a lot of research into it, but I have seen it floating around as a big discussion at the moment, mostly in the screen time debate with infants.
Sure, that makes sense. But it's a similar line of thinking. It's not digital specifically, but in terms of my husband and I have both talked about this a bit because I had these visions of sending Timo and any other children we have to some kind of like Montessori school, but then the high school that we're planning to send him to is not compatible with that kind of style, and it would feel cruel to take him to a very not non-structured, but a less traditional schooling environment, and then to go into a much more formal schooling environment. And I don't think that would be a sensible way of things. So we are going to be doing the more traditional schooling element, largely because it's just a smoother journey for him. But then likewise, it makes me think that there's an element of you have to quote unquote learn how to sit down and pay attention, which is not conducive to the way small brains work.
No, it really isn't. Like, I don't know. It really depends on how much of a difference there is between like your primary age Montessori and your high school aged independence, because high school is a different structure to primary school. There is a big transition from primary to high school just in the traditional form. You do get given more independence in high school. It's just whether like it's a step back from the independence you had in a Montessori or like alternative school, or whether it's a step forward, and how much of a juxtaposition that is. Because I've definitely heard stories of kids that went from Montessori primary to mainstream secondary and had no trouble with it.
Oh, of course. I'm not saying that by itself is a problem. More that the kind of child that Timo is. I think that going from a style of schooling where he has a lot more control over things to a situation where it's a much more traditional. Mind you, I'm kind of trying to imagine what the school will look like in 12 years versus what it looked like 15 years ago when we had direct experience with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences there.
So yeah, this is all just trying to, but I wonder, have you been thinking about school at all? Like,
oh, look, my husband continually reminds me that we need to get her on lists if we want to get her into a private or something. And I don't know. Like, I think the kind of kid she is, obviously there's not like learning things don't really shake out until they go into more of a formal schooling environment. So like 6, I think she's a more typical kid, so she'll be fine in any school. And primary school, like it really doesn't matter where they go in primary, because as long as it's not some rigid, like you have to do this, you have to do that. Here's 500 hours of homework every night, which like my daughter will be doing none of anyways. I think any kind of schooling will be fine. It's more the secondary schooling and that like more challenging period of life where it will be more something I consider. And I think she'll have a say in that too. So in terms of primary school, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards public school, even though I don't think my husband is. Simply because like most academics where I work send their kids to the public schools down here and they seem to love it. So, you know, obviously public schooling in Australia isn't that bad. And yeah, the like tricky parts are like avoiding the public schools in lower SES areas on the Gold Coast because they tend to have a lot more drugs floating around, but so too do the private schools. Like the really fancy ones, they have lots of drugs hanging around. So it's it's a later problem.
I just only because we moved house recently to kind of our, if not our forever home, our for a long time home. So it's kind of the first time we've been settled enough to actually think about, now that we know where we'll be living, what, like where are we going to be looking at for schooling?
Well, on the topic of that, I'm going to bring us back to, because if we've been recording for a little over half an hour, I'm going to bring us back to everything you guys missed while we were on our season break, our season 1 to season 2 break. Siobhan, what happened?
Oh yeah, I forget that we haven't been recording.
No. Anyways, Siobhan, what happened in your life between May and September?
I bought a house.
Yay! I feel like you talked on the podcast about how you were going to have to wait years to buy a house, and then all of a sudden you bought a house. I was like, what?
Oh, it felt that way. Well, it felt that way. We'd been looking. We started looking in October last year, and we ended up buying. We got the keys in July. So we had been looking for quite a while, and during that time, Australia and Brisbane, the area that we are in, saw a massive spike. Like looking at, we both have siblings. Yeah, my husband and I, we both have siblings who bought 2-3 years ago, and we were easily spending 200-300-400 grand more than they did, which is a lot of money. And we thought we had a really healthy deposit, and we did. And you're like, oh, cool, we can't buy anything lovely.
Yeah.
But we just got really lucky. We found something that we really like, and it's really close to my parents, which is not what we expected to be able to do.
Yeah.
So we're like a 5-minute drive from my parents, or a bit further from Alex's parents, which is a bit sad. But like when there's no traffic, it's like 20 minutes, which is nothing. But yeah, so as a result, we've been looking at schools. Speaking, I don't know, I think I've spoken to you about this. I don't know if anything was recorded. I've got on my Instagram some like bits of stuff we did to help Timo with the move.
Yes, you did.
Some things that we did very intentionally. And we can talk about that in another episode if we want to. But it was so funny. He was obviously very attached to the last house because that was home. And he kept saying, I don't want to go to the new house. But now he loves the new house, which is good. But he recently, out of nowhere, just came up and said, can we go to the dead house, Mummy? Which is not what I would have described that house as.
Why is it dead? Why is it a dead house?
I don't know.
Oh, so morbid.
It's not ours anymore.
Oh, small human, so morbid.
I know. He's starting to, obviously he does not understand the concept of death, and he won't for many years, but he's been starting to use the word. And he'll like lie down and be like, I'm dead.
My God.
Or I know. And the other day he was lying on the bed and went, Mummy, I'm not dead. I'm just lying down.
I mean, the topic of death is a really interesting one. I think my my daughter actually understands it pretty well. Like because her cousin's dad died when they were like when one of them was a baby, so like 4 or something years ago. And so we talk about it all the time because she asks about it all the time. And we came across a possum on the side of the road when we were walking to kindy one day, and Ryan was like, "Oh, it's sleeping," and I was like, "It's not sleeping, it's dead." Because like, you know, that urge to be honest and like say everything matter of fact, because
no, I'm kidding.
But also like it's important that kids like are told matter of fact and straight. Like possums don't just lie down on the street in the daytime. Like I'm not going to teach her like the wrong thing about Australian animals.
I'm totally teasing. I would have done exactly the same thing.
I know. Yeah. So I was like, it's dead. And she's like, why is it dead? And I was like, it's probably got hit by a car. And I think she understands it pretty well. She's like, oh, okay. And like now, like every time we walk past that spot, she's like, the dead possum's gone. And I'm like, you're right, it is. And she's like, where did it go? I'm like, I don't know. The council people probably took it somewhere. And she's like, why? And I was like, because if you leave something on the side of the road where people are walking past it and dogs are, it'll start decaying and someone will eat it and it'll make them very sick. And this ties in really nicely. This is a really random episode, but in Scotland, my husband and daughter were like out strawberry picking or something, which is such a beautiful thing to do in St. Andrews. But yeah, they were out strawberry picking, and she's like, Daddy, where do you go when you die? And I was so proud of his response. It's like the student became the teacher, or out, like whatever, like you know what I mean. Student became the master. And he's like, well, some people believe that when you die, your body stays here, and then your soul or spirit or whatever goes somewhere else. And she's like, yeah, but what do you believe, Daddy? I'm like, I'm also proud of her being like, Daddy, you don't believe that. And he's like, well, I believe that when you die, nothing happens. You don't leave your body. You just stop being. And you know how your sunflower has started to like wilt and get gross because we picked it a few days ago? That's what happens to your body. It starts to decay. Just like, wow, that's intense for a toddler. But she apparently, her response was, oh, that's sad, and like moved on. It's just like that is an intense conversation, but I am very proud that is where it went.
It's so funny, right? Like, and it's like you end up having so many of these conversations earlier than you expect. Timo, I had my period recently, and Timo saw that I had blood because I had a pad on, and he went, "Oh no, Mummy, you're bleeding." And I said, "Yes." He goes, "What's that for?" I said, "Well, it's like a Band-Aid because I'm bleeding." He goes, "From your vulva," because I teach. This is a thing that Alex and I constantly gripe about, because vulva is the correct term, but Alex is like, oh, just call it a vagina. Most people call it a vagina. It's easy. I'm like, but it's not accurate. And he's like, he doesn't need accurate, which I understand the logic, but I'm still going to call it what it's called. And then he's like, from your vulva? I'm like, well, no, actually, this one's from my vagina. And then he went, what's a vagina for? And I went, oh, well,
multiple things.
And I'm like, I'm not just going to say it's just for babies, because it's not just for babies. And I'm like, well, it's where babies come from. Sometimes they come from out through the tummy, or sometimes they come through the vagina. You came through my vagina. I said it's also for pleasure, but we'll talk about that another time.
I love that.
I'm like, because I had not prepared for this.
Let me know when you have that conversation, because we aren't there yet. We've had the period conversation because like toddlers followed you to the bathroom. There is no privacy. Like they are going to see in very explicit detail. My daughter asked me if she could have a tampon, and I said, not until you bleed. Not for a long time. She's obsessed with them though. She's fascinated. But my God. They are, but like, and she just wants to do everything that I do. Like I haven't had a shower alone in months. Like we have a double shower. So like, it's beautiful. It's luxury. Like it's fine. She gets her own shower head and I get mine. But like, there is no privacy, none at all. And it's kind of okay. The more you do with your kid before they go to bed, the more like luxury free time you have after they go to bed, which is not much anyway.
But also like she'll like, and if you're cool with it and she's cool with it, and like she'll seek out her own independence and privacy when she's
basically
ready.
Anyways, getting back on track, because we love to get off track here at Parenting Unpacked. Anything else that we missed between May and September for you, Siobhan?
Yes, undoubtedly, but I don't know what. Nah, got nothing.
No.
I bought a house. We moved in.
What a quiet period of time for you.
I did think, I don't know, just life continued. I can't think of anything exciting, particularly.
That's fair.
My 3 nieces all turned 1 within a week of each other.
Jesus.
No, 4. I have 4 nieces that turned 1 in the same
Friend,
month.
that is a lot.
Oh, across the span of a month.
That is a lot of small humans within a small period of time.
Oh yeah, so we had lots of parties that were chaos because that's how that works. Yeah, and then most of my nephews and nieces are born in winter, Australian winter, so June, July, August. So it was just party central, and then buying lots of presents, and then Timo getting upset that he didn't have presents, and then him like finding all the present stash that we'd hidden, and then demanding that he has it. Which great logic. I understand it. I want things that I can't have all the time. But yes. Yeah, just more of that, lots of painting and fixing and scheduling tradespeople to fix things and having tradespeople not return your phone
new house
calls.
life, hey? New old house life.
Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Quite. But yeah, what about you? Anything, apart from your wonderful trip that we will go into detail in another future podcast, and receiving an autism diagnosis that we'll talk about in a future podcast.
That kind of sums it up. We did May, we wrapped unexpectedly, and then I think around that time I went and got a diagnosis of autism, which wasn't overly surprising, but like, hey, here we are. And I've been slowly figuring out what that means for me and figuring it all out in the grand scheme of things. I don't know. I need to go and find an autism therapist, because I think I am like suffering burnout pretty bad, on the regular, because I'm always sick at the moment. And I think it's because my body cannot keep handling the way that I am trying to keep up with a neurotypical world with a neurodivergent brain. So that's really something that I need to work on. Then, we went to Scotland 3 days after we'd been broken into. So I came home and there was someone in my house.
Yes. We haven't told this. We've talked about it, of course, but wow, okay, we've got
so there was a person in my house, and then 3 days later we went to Scotland, which was a very long set of flights for my very small human, and I spent 3 weeks at an incredible mind-expanding summer institute while my husband and daughter got to frolic around the Scottish countryside, which was awesome. I passed out in Scotland and on the way home on the plane, and got wheeled through Singapore airport. That was really fun. Actually, that was pretty fun. Being wheeled through Singapore airport and like skipping the queues was quite excellent. And then we got home, and within 4 days of getting home, we weaned, breastfeeding. My nearly 3-year-old and I weaned, and it was far, far easier than I thought it would be. The only side effect was that she felt a bit uneasy about our relationship and didn't really want to be separated from me at all. But that also could have been the fact that she'd just spent 4 weeks off kindy. And she's also dropping her day nap when she's with us. And while she was in Scotland, she didn't need a day nap. And now she doesn't have one when she's on the weekend with us. At kindy, she still does have like a 20-minute one because that white noise apparently gets her every time, she told me. And every single other child in her daycare center naps, including all the children in the older rooms, in the pre-prep room. So yeah, and it's really hard to get her. So I've stopped breastfeeding her to sleep. And now she goes to sleep just by us reading books, and she eventually flutters her eyes closed after the 3rd or 70th book, depending on whether she's had a nap that day. It's fantastic. I think that's everything.
Oh, in that case,
it's not.
You're so much better at remembering things. I've forgotten.
Yeah.
So oh no, sorry, you do your last thing.
Oh yeah. What else did I do? I went to Sydney with TikTok for some TikTok event for NAIDOC week. Right. That was fun. That was a there and back in one day kind of thing. And that made me really sick and exhausted afterwards. I wonder why. And then like the next week I went to Canberra because I won an award for science communication. And I had that award presented at Parliament House, which was really fun. And yeah, now I think I'm done. Now I think that's everything. I'm about to go to Canberra again at the end of the month, but like that's for later. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, what did you forget?
So I've remembered all the things that I've been, yeah, I mean everything. So we've been toilet
that's
training.
Right.
Timo, so that he kind of initiated that. My plan was to do it and wait until summer when things were warmer. He started in the coldest week of the year.
I love it.
And insisted on wearing only shorts everywhere, despite it being like 5 degrees. And that's going really well. He's like a champ with weave. Poos are a bit more challenging, but that isn't that the truth? So we're navigating that. He stopped napping in like maybe May. So he doesn't nap when he's with us at all. No, it's terrible. We've talked about this off recording. You're jealous. I hate it. Because I prefer a later bedtime because it works with our lifestyle better. So I would prefer kind of an 8:00, 8:30 bedtime, because then that gives me an hour or two. Whereas at the moment, although that's shifted as well, but yeah, he still naps at daycare. So I'm guessing, it's a mixture of peer pressure and
that white noise.
Not peer pressure, but like as in everyone else is doing it. It's just the rhythm of the day. And he's a more he's not a highly sensitive child, but he's kind of slow to warm. Apparently they call them tulips. So
like slow to warm is tulips.
No, orchids are highly sensitive.
So many
slow to warm
flowers.
Is tulips. So we can talk about that another time. Yeah, so he he enjoys the hubbub of like the busyness of lots of other children, but he finds it quite overwhelming, which
same.
Hey, me too. Exactly. So I think he just gets a lot more tired. But when he's with us or with his granny or on the weekend, it is a no nap day, and I just get tired. And I love I would nap every day if I could. And so when he naps, I nap, and it's great. And now I can't do that. And
Isn't this just like the perfect example of like children's sleep? And like whether we find it good or bad really depends on our own lifestyles, and like the fact that like the same exact child can be desirable for some people and non-desirable for others. And like that's why people are trying to train their kids out of the way they sleep has got more to do with the person that's parenting them than the child themselves. And it's just like, so many societal expectations and beliefs. And it's just, do what works for you and your family. I want a child that doesn't nap during the day, because then she'll go to bed earlier at night, because I go to bed really early. And like basically at the moment she goes to bed and then we go straight to bed, and then she wakes us up in the morning. So we get no time alone together ever. She sleeps like 10 hours total a day on a good day. Like I want one of those kids that sleeps 7 to 7.
Yeah, they don't exist.
They do.
They just write PDFs about them.
I see them on social media. Like, social comparison.
We've talked about this.
But social comparison is rife. It's a well-studied phenomenon. Social comparison is what ruins mental health, and that's kind of the problem at the moment. And why I'm trying to unpack it by like telling everyone that my toddler only sleeps 9 or 10 hours a night, and that is exhausting. But also you just got to kind of learn to hang out with your kid.
Well, that's kind of the way. I mean, it does get easier as they get older. At least I have found that, because it's a bit easier to be like, no, I need time away from you. You go sit over there and I'll go sit over here.
Does he actually let you do that though? Because if I say that, she gets even
ridiculous.
more like she clings on tighter. If I say I need some time apart, she gets even clingier.
No, usually I just tap Alex in.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
We tap each other in.
Does Timo have a favorite, or is he like very that's beautiful. I'm jealous.
So it's really great. I love it. I don't think it's anything we've done per se. I mean, it helps that Alex has always worked from home, so he's always there.
Yeah.
And the kind of work he does is very pausable, in that if Timo really needs him, he can stop doing what he's doing and then pick it up later.
Wow. That's some
not
serious
all the
patience
time.
and like ability to switch your brain from one task to another. Wow.
Exactly. And he's really good at that.
That's so hard.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But it's been like he has preferences for different activities. So if he's hurt himself, it's almost always me.
Yeah.
Or if he really like wants kind of high energy play, it's Alex, which is
awesome.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
But like often if he's sad or lonely, he says his refrain is "Mummy, Daddy, Mummy, Daddy, Mummy, Daddy."
That's so cute.
Yeah, so it's really sweet. And kind of where we're not interchangeable, but as in if one of us is not available, he'll usually be fine with the other. He needs me to go to sleep and kicks Alex out of the room by saying, "Goodbye, Daddy. Good night, Daddy. Go away, Daddy." We've told him that it's not polite to say go away and that he has to say good night.
Yeah.
And then there's been a few instances where Alex has had to put him to sleep and it's worked some of the time. But often he knows that I'll be done in a bit, so he'll just stay awake until I'm ready.
Wow.
I've got like a workshop or a seminar or something that I'm delivering. But
yeah, look, we're very different. Our kids are very different because
absolutely. All children are.
I'm such a favorite that like this is ruthless, my poor husband, that my daughter gets excited when my husband goes away because it means that I am like all hers and like he won't help with all, he can't offer to take her out and like do things with her while I stay at home. Like she's just like, Mum is finally all mine and I don't have this intrusion by Dad. Like, and it's just I'm just like, are you sad that Dad's gone? And she's like, no. And I'm like, what? How are you feeling? She's like, happy. I'm like, why? And she's like, because I get to be with Mummy. And it's like, you're with me anyways. Like, but more of my attention, I guess, is on her when Dad's not home. And then I just like sit there and I'm like, you want a sibling? If you want a sibling, what do you think is going to happen to me?
As you were saying this, I'm like, she does not want a sibling.
She doesn't want a sibling.
She says she does.
No, it's just like, it's insane how heavy the favoritism is skewed towards me. And hey, it's probably because my husband's away 1 to 2 weeks of the month. Like, but like still, like I would love a break and I literally cannot ever get one. She will chuck a tantrum every time he tries to take her to a playground without me. And she gets real sad and she's like, Mummy, come. And it's like, why? Like, once we get there, you and Dad are going to play and I'm just going to sit in the corner. Like, anyways, such is life.
No, well, we went through a very short period of that, around 12 months.
Oh, yeah. When you weaned?
Lasted about... It wasn't weaning related, actually. But, yeah, because we did wean around that time, but I know it wasn't weaning related because it continued past that. And it was our weaning situation was so
very different.
Weird in a good way. Like, yeah.
Weird in a good way.
He asked... We weaned and he asked for it once and I said no. And then that's how that went. Never again.
So fantastic.
So
like
strange.
Just, wow. Like some kids wean themselves. Some kids wean that easily. My daughter would not have, at 12 months, my daughter would have screamed until I gave it to her. And if that meant days of screaming, it would have happened. She would have screamed for days. She can outlast me. Like this is, she can outlast me. And
this is the problem, but they don't tell you, hey, that you can't not like, not everyone has the stamina to last for days and days and days.
Yes. And like, I have a lot of stamina. Like I am a very, very patient parent. If you've ever seen me handle a tantrum in public, which I'm sure some people like on here have, like I always get hit up at like shopping centers now and being like, hey, I love your content. So I'm sure people have watched me handle tantrums in public. I am a very patient person. And I cannot handle prolonged screaming because I worry for her health. Like I am actually genuinely worried that level of screaming for that long is going to make her feel ill. Because like if I cried for that long, I think I would make myself vomit. And like, yeah, it kind of gets the empathy part of me. Like it doesn't make me like snap and yell at her. It makes me like, oh, you're gonna feel really bad soon. Like, let's try and like walk it back.
Oh, I mean, that's the point of crying, right? Like it's designed,
yes, it is,
as an evolutionary response to appeal to each other for help.
Doesn't it just put us into fight or flight mode? Whew. Anyways, Siobhan.
Well, on that cheery note,
it's been an hour. We should probably stop babbling. I don't really know what we're doing anymore. How about
did we ever?
Let's end the episodes just randomly coming up with this, because we've done absolutely no prep, which is, carrying on from the vibe of season 1, is not preparing anything for episodes. Let's end our episodes with a Fun Fact Friday, even though it's Tuesday that we're recording this and probably releasing it. We'll do a Fun Fact Friday, because who cares what day of the week it is? We're going to call it Fun Fact Friday. My Fun Fact Friday is that research on so they did this research on a bunch of professional athletes, right? To figure out what kind of approach raises a professional athlete. Is it one where you get the kid in really early and make them focus on that sport and only that sport? Or is it another approach? And it turns out that the athletes that get to the peak of a sport are those that started their sport that they end up in later and who play a range of different sports throughout their childhood. And that the children who are put into sport really early and are only allowed to train on that sport and nothing else, they're the ones that burn out and never actually make it to that professional peak of sport. So the old tiger mum adage doesn't seem to be effective at producing elite sportsmen at all.
That makes total
sense. I know it does. It's the same with prodigious children.
So much of it is a mental game.
Yeah.
That you need to be mentally robust to perform at that level, because it, by definition, requires a lot of failure to succeed.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that to be old enough and well-rounded enough to handle those kinds of upsets.
Exactly.
And then not have it define you.
Yeah, but also to have experience playing a whole bunch of different sports makes you a well-rounded sportsman. It doesn't burn out your passion by feeling like you're being pushed into it, which is all the things that we see with children who are prodigies. Most children who are prodigies don't end up being field revolutionizing innovators like Elon Musk or whatever. They end up burning out really early because of the external pressures and the withdrawal of praise and things like that. But anyways, that's my random fact for Fun Fact Friday. What's your Fun Fact Friday?
Well, you've put me on the spot, so I don't know that I have one.
I mean, I just saw a reel that you did on breastfeeding. No, not breastfeeding. Peanuts peanut allergies and pregnancy. Fun Fact Friday.
There, sweet. Fun Fact Friday, peanuts. So it was kind of inspired by, well, firstly, I had someone reach out and ask me whether or not there was any evidence based on it, because they'd been told by someone to avoid peanuts so their little one didn't have an allergy. But one of my nieces has a severe peanut allergy and has an EpiPen, which is sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, her mum's a nurse, so she's well and truly on top of it, which is good. But basically, the thing was that, does eating peanuts in pregnancy increase the risk of your child developing a peanut allergy? And the answer is no.
Of course not.
There's no evidence. Yeah, of course not. There's no evidence for that at all. The only evidence regarding your child's allergy is that if you have a food allergy, the chance of your child also having a food allergy is increased. Gotta love them genetics. But which food allergy it is, it doesn't matter, because it's an immune response.
So if you have a more reactive immune system.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So whatever the trigger is not particularly relevant. It's that your immune system is reactive, and so I could be highly allergic to egg, and the increased risk. Timo's not at an increased risk to have an egg allergy per se. He's just at an increased risk to have an allergy of something.
Yeah, right.
I don't have an egg.
You have a celiac.
I have.
Yeah,
celiac
is that an allergy?
Yeah, which is so it's not an allergy. It's an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
Because I'm not actually allergic to gluten. I'm allergic to the enzyme that your body makes to break down gluten.
Okay.
So, so I'm attacking my own cells as opposed to the gluten itself.
Wonderful.
Yeah, isn't that great? Okay. So he has a much higher risk of developing that. The advice at this stage is to, in the event that he needs a blood test, then just to add celiac to see on whether or not he has the gene. Because if he doesn't have the gene, there's no risk of developing it.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
So fingers crossed that's what happened.
Yeah.
but we haven't needed a blood test yet, so we'll find out, and I'll keep you updated.
Well, Siobhan, that is wonderful. We've done our impromptu Fun Fact Friday. We have filled everyone in on all the things they've missed since our unexpected season 1 wrap and our surprise season 2 joining. Where none of us thought we were coming back, but here we are. I'm so proud of us. So yeah, I guess we will catch everyone in the next one. No idea what the next one's on, but, we're working on it. So we'll let you know when we know, which is probably once we've recorded it. Anyways, see you later. Bye.
Have a great time. Bye.